Welcome back, Plant Medicine Yogis. Jessica Avancina here, Yeshiva. I wanted to welcome you back to our continued lesson here. We are number 4 into the series. Where have we been? Well, we've learned about Sanskrit, and we've learned about the importance of the overall meaning of yoga. We've also looked at the yamas and niyamas, which are the root system that comprises that larger Patanjali tree of life. And so just to go over the yamas one more time, the guidelines to live by. Let's look at the first one, ahimsa, which is nonviolence, satya, which is the truth or what is true. Asteya is honesty and also could be looked at as authenticity. Brahmacharya is the containment of your energy in all ways. And last one was aparigraha, which is non-attachment. So we've gone into those. So now let's move on, and I will reshare the presentation here. And so let's move on to the niyamas. So remember, the root system is comprised of these 2 supporting structures, if you will. And the niyama is talking much more about the self-discipline. And you can also look at that to be the how. The how do we do these things? How do we keep our practice? How do we build our will? How do we continue on this path? What are some of those things that we need to make sure we pay attention to and do? And they suggest on a daily basis, some of these things. Okay, so the first one is pronounced saucha. The C has a CH sound. So saucha stands for purity. So purity insofar as purification. So anything that you do as a purification ritual. So think about not just, of course, your body, we're going to talk about that, but your home environment, your office environment, your land, where you live, your surroundings, all of that is how is it reflective of the energies you want to live in, attract, expand, etc. So purification. It could also be, beautification, right? But so through this purification method, here specifically, as we talk about plant medicines, we would think about Kambo, right? Kambo is one of the major medicines that is here, but there's many others. If you ever go to a more deeper retreat, maybe like in Colombia or something like that, where the medicines are, like in the Amazon, they have a lot more medicines other than just, let's say, the ayahuasca medicine for purification. One of those being the cebolleta, which is a drink that literally is like Kambo, where it clears you out. And most of these medicines do involve, of course, purging through vomiting, diarrhea, these kinds of things, but it's just trying to get all of that out of the body. And we all know that with the Kambo process, much like with this cebolleta drink, it's not until you get to that bile kind of experience where your body really releases all of the emotion and everything else that's tied to what we hold in our liver, in our kidneys, in our organs, in our cells of our body. So cebolleta is one of them. They also have ortiga, which is the stinging nettle. Again, there's all these processes for energetic, physical, spiritual cleansing to arrive at this purity, at this level where you've arrived there, where you feel so much lighter, you feel so much more in tune with your body. There's this heaviness that lifts. And even if you live pretty healthy, even if you look at what you eat and everything else, just living in the normal world is going to expose you to toxins everywhere, microplastics, all of these electronics we live with, they all have an effect on the body. And so that's what the saucha is talking about, is really anything that helps you purify the body. Of course, the temescals, the saunas, anything where we are purging, where we are sweating, where we are getting to that cleanliness of the body inside and out. And of course, the bigger idea is to clean the mind and the emotions as well. So I think we're pretty clear on saucha. They're talking about this daily ritual. In fact, when I was at the ashram having that yoga teacher training experience, they really gave us the traditional work, close to a traditional yogic experience in India, while you kind of emerge into the ashram life. One of those things was, as soon as we walked in, we all had to have our own neti pot and cleanse the nasal passages every morning before our first yoga practice. So again, this works really well with rapé, right? If you're going to be doing rapé on a very regular basis, it's of course a purifying in its own right. That's what it does. The rapé purifies the auric field, it purifies the mind, it purifies the body, but also, utilizing the neti pot to rinse out those channels is a great idea. But they have many others. A simple practice that was also given to us was candle gazing, which I had done before. Of course, staring at a fire is always a beautiful thing, but of course it takes you back to the ceremonies, right? We always have fire in ceremonies present, and one of the things that you do through a nighttime ceremony is go sit by the fire and just literally look at it. And then you feel the fire, the transformative, cleansing, transmuting fire or power of the fire. So the candle gazing exercise you could do at your home isn't as arbitrary as just turning on a candle and meditating. It's really just utilizing your eyesight, where you put the candle near your gaze. So try not to have it like too far down or too high up or too far away even. It's supposed to be an arm's length or shorter, maybe more like a ruler length, a foot. And so the candle, not to where, of course, you're going to affect the candle or it's going to affect you too much. But the idea is that you stare into the candle without blinking, or as little blinking as you can tolerate. And that tearing up that will happen in the eyes is actually what's desired in this process of saucha cleansing. So that tearing up is getting rid of the toxins and cleansing your eyes, but further, your inner eye. So there's all of these very, very beautiful saucha practices. Of course, breath work can cleanse, but I can go on and on. You can do anything that you feel helps purify your mind, your body, and your spirit, and that would be part of your daily saucha practice. Next, we talk about santosha with an SH sound. This is, I would use many words to describe it, because contentment kind of, similar to brahmacharya, where we talk about containment, it's kind of difficult to understand what are we really getting at. And this is contentment, but it's more so this feeling centered, that feeling of equanimity. I love this word. That's one of the first things I delved into in mindfulness and in Buddhist practices. Equanimity is neither here nor there, right? It's right in the middle. It's centered. It's the ability to hold a stimuli without reacting in any direction. Now, of course, we can think about ninjas, we can think about yogis, we can think about really advanced practitioners who can achieve this level of equanimity while they do these amazing physical feats. So equanimity, in my sense, also is mostly talking about the mind, right? Is that centering of the mind where you're able to keep your center. And so it's a cultivation. It's not something that you can just, achieve overnight. It's developing that ability to observe and to look at whether something is good or bad in a very neutral way, right? This is probably counter to a lot of the things we were taught as a child, the reactiveness perhaps of a parent that you may have had. I certainly had a very reactive parent, so I had to I'm still learning to retrain my mind when there's a heavy stimulus. How do we just achieve that contentment, that center, that equanimity piece? It frees us from desires and suffering. So this is what monks practice a whole heck of a lot. This is why all the other practices help us become aware of our blind spots where we're still being very, very, very sensitive, very reactive, very aggressive, maybe. So looking at those is where you realize, okay, I still have some area of growth here to practice some samtosha. So samtosha is that ability to hold your center. Now, I've always thought about it where it's hard to say, well, I lost my center, and then we beat ourselves up about that. It's really, I think, about how quickly can we get back to our center. That's the practice, I would say, right? Because, and maybe some temperaments are easier here. Maybe you're very calm in your demeanor anyway, but maybe other things make you reactive, or maybe you react internally and not externally. That's still reaction, whether we see it or not. So the idea here is some stimuli comes forward and knocks you off your center, whether it's a little or a lot. The idea here is not to, well, there it is, it's all lost. No, it's how quickly can I use my tools and recenter? How quickly can I become aware that I've gone off my center and then come back to my center, utilizing the plethora of techniques that you have learned, that you have at your disposal, your rapé, your microdosing, whatever it is that you do that helps you have the tools and develop the ability to get back to your center as quick as you can. And remember, center just means that 0 point where you neither feel this way or that way, you feel at peace. That's how I would best describe it, at peace. Okay, moving on. So tapa is asceticism. So what does that mean, that word? And I kind of feel like this one has a lot of charge to it because it's basically a monastic life. Is living a monastic life. And this is where I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to go up on some mountain and live in a cave. But really, it's the practice of rigorous self-discipline and abstinence from various forms of self-indulgence. And this is mostly and almost purely for the purpose of spiritual growth. You can also think about self-expansion. You can think about self-optimization, right? So to live a life by these practices is that you start to develop a will, a want, and a leaning towards something different. And how you came to that, many different paths, right? But you're on that tree, you're walking that path, and now you're thinking, okay, what does it take to develop that self-discipline, to complete practices, to complete rituals, to finish things that make me a better human being? And how do I abstain from the various self-indulgent things? That covers a lot. I can think of low-hanging fruit here, alcohol, right? Self-indulgence. It could mean anything. It means shopping, of course, eating, right? Accumulation of things. Self-indulgence can also mean power and control. So think about, again, it's different for everybody, but it is developing that practice, that self-discipline. I talked a little bit about my journey with yoga, the actual physical asana practice. And for me, I said it was very difficult to even think about doing something on a daily basis because my body hurt and I just wasn't in the right shape, physically. And so it took a lot for me to keep putting that foot forward and keep walking on that path. But once you get that momentum, it's keeping that momentum. Some of the things that we do in the plant medicine preparation kind of gets that wheel going. You know, when somebody prepares for like an ayahuasca ceremony, you're going to prepare for up to a month before and start applying all of these things that we're talking about here, trying to increase that self-discipline and trying to watch where we're being overly self-indulgent and almost, you know, try to live that life that's a lot healthier. I've heard that once people have done it for a few weeks, you know, it's like, oh, I actually like the way I feel. I want to keep this going. So it gives you a glimpse into what that could feel and look like for you, and gives you that will and wanting to keep that going. So tapa is something that develops naturally, little at first, and then you want more and more and more of it. As you start getting into these healing practices, you start moving towards what makes you heal and feel better, and you start moving away from the things that cause more pain and suffering in your life, right? So why would alcohol? Of course, you know, you're numbing, shopping, you get in debt. It's really not really doing anything. Ultimately, it's just kind of filling a gap, perhaps, but it's momentary. So what are some of the practices here that can help support this tapa? Well, of course, fasting, you know, it's a simple one. You can start to cut back on eating, not be so reliant on just food for energy and different things like that. It helps build your fortitude. Also, going to these silent retreats that I have been on before were really, really, really important in showing me how you can build that discipline of sitting for large periods of time with meditation that I also thought wasn't possible before that. Eating a vegetarian lifestyle, I also was like, no way, I can't eat like that. And then two, just not communicating, right? How many of you think, oh, I'd die if I wasn't talking and talking for days at a time? So all of these practices just kind of give us a taste of what is that like. And here it says something that burns. Something that burns just means something that provides that transformative power. So like Kambo, right? If you can think about that experience of sitting with it, that feeling of unease before the relief of the purging comes, right? All of that kind of builds up that fire, that fortitude, that ability to sustain and keep going. And then that helps you with the next thing and the next thing. So things that burn, again, temazcal, saunas, heat practices, exercise, you know, your muscles burning. So all of this helps build that self-discipline. So that's what this is, self-discipline towards your self-realization. Next is Svadhyaya, and that is the field of study of, or wanting and leaning into learning. As you go down these paths, of course, you want to naturally know more. And I've shared with some of you that I feel like there is a playbook, and the playbook is more around a natural process for everyone. And of course, some stay in some phases or chapters of your self-exploration longer, while others move through the steps quicker. It really is no difference. It's up to you, and it's your path. But I do feel like, of course, every bit of work that we do with the medicines has a purpose and a meaning, and there is a flow to it. So when you first come to the medicines, it's all about healing either the body, the mind, you know, and of course, eventually the soul experience. But initially, we are drawn to medicine for a purpose and a reason. Like, I want to heal this, whatever that is. And so it usually starts helping you on a very physical and emotional level, and it takes the biggest bang for your buck those first few ceremonies, you're healing the big stuff, the big trauma, usually the childhood trauma, usually the parental relationships, usually the familial relationships. That's what we're carrying. That's what we want to heal. And that's usually what comes up first. Later, it starts to bring up even stuff you brought in from different lifetimes that has permeated into this lifetime. Probably even ancestral lineages, things that, you've healed your stuff. Now you're healing 7 generations back, 7 generations forward. So that's the playbook. But after that, so, people have often asked me, so what are your experiences like now? Well, they're a lot more around learning. They're a lot more around understanding the universe, the way things work. Now it's about asking questions. I feel like every time I step into a ceremony, it's like this incredible opportunity to learn, to ask, to be a student of, of the cosmos. Really, you can learn so much from nature, from a tree. One of my peyote ceremonies, I just sat talking to a tree and learning from the jungle. I felt they were like these master teachers, just teaching me so much about the way things work in our universe. So this idea that you grow into wisdom and all of this comes out of, you've healed all your traumas, you've healed most of your things, and of course that's a never-ending process. But once you're in a good place, then it starts to open up this idea of, well, how can I learn more? How can I learn more, of course, about myself, but also about the external, and then you learn to go back internal. So this can be the study of sacred texts, and that's what prompts, kind of like this journey to find sacred books of all kinds, right? I feel like, gosh, almost everything's been written, and we just need to look for it. What is it that you're looking for in your life? And I'm sure somebody somewhere has written a book about it. And some of these books are quite old, and they hold so much knowledge. And so this is very, very, very good around learning new things, new methods, constantly perfecting your craft insofar as your self-realization. And there's so many tools. Of course, you have the meditative tools. You have new tools like, a rapé practice. Maybe even you can learn about mantras and how they work, how they sustain this thought package work, this vibrational frequency, and how it affects your body and your energy field. There's also shadow work, right? Like, how do I go into the deepest, darkest parts of myself, and how do I bring light to that? There's just so much to be a master student of your own desires, right? This is all self-study. What is it that you want to learn? And so it's really that spark of divinity that just expands through knowledge. And last we have Isvara Pradinhana. And this one here is meditating on God. I would just say put whatever word fits for you. If that's not really resonating for you, it could be source, it could be great spirit. It could even be the highest version of you. But ultimately, once you heal and once you start having these bigger experiences, you start to really come into contact with the experience of Christ consciousness. And here it gets sticky because people associate that with Jesus. And that's not at all what that is. Christ consciousness really is just that one consciousness. It was attributed, that name, and so it holds a lot of connotation. But really, any ascended master achieves Christ consciousness once you see the divinity of the cosmos in you. And maybe through some version of any and all plant medicines, you've you've touched upon that. You've felt that larger version of you that is stuck in this one little body experience. So that's kind of all of those things that you can start to play with. What is the Maya, right? And Maya is what in yoga is called the illusion, the dream, this that we are living in a 3D experience. But once that collapses, what are you left with, right? I think of the Bufo experience as really one to bring that experience forward right away. So it's seeing God, source, great spirit, whatever, in you, and then in everybody else, and in everything else, right? So there's this very big, broad concept of, here, like in this instance, I'm just really talking to myself. And why am I just talking to myself? Because whoever is listening on the other side is just another version of me, which is another, or which we are all the version of the Great Spirit, a little droplet, a little spark of the divine in me and in you, and we're both made of the same. So it's dealing with all of these experiential feelings, crossing into, merging into that divinity space where you feel that for yourself and where you feel it and you see it in everyone else, right? I always love the experience. It's almost childlike, and I love it for its innocence. If it hasn't happened to you, I hope it does. I hope it does. I hope if you stay on this plant medicine path, it will happen to you at some point, where you feel your divinity in such a deep way. Like we talked in a few videos ago, when you put your hand on the on a desk, and if you didn't have your left side of your brain, you would just not know the difference between your hand and the desk. In the same way, sometime in your process, the veil will be lifted, where there will be no difference between you and ultimate creator, ultimate source, God. And so with that experience, you will think, oh my gosh, I've just stumbled upon the greatest secret of all time. God is hiding in me. I am God, right? And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, mind blown. What will I do with this now? I mean, do I have to start a church? Do I have to redeem the world? What do I need to do now that I'm God? And what if people realize I'm God? And so I chuckle because this is a very funny, in the moment, it's huge. In the moment when you feel that, when that hits you and you're like, oh, this is huge. Oh, what do I do with this? It's very childlike, because on the one hand, well, of course, you've always been that. You've never not been that. But it's funny when we really feel it, rather than a concept, when you feel it experientially, that you are that spark of the divine. You are that. You are that. You are that, period. And so it's funny, because then you say, well, how do I incorporate this Christ consciousness experience to my daily life? And the reality is that we all are that. And first you feel it for yourself, and second you feel it, oh, but he is too, and she is too, and the dog is too, and everything is too, right? So you then get to that point, and it's just a beautiful unfolding of this experience called, Chaitanya. It's the Christos experience. It's the Christ consciousness experience. So it's this Ishvara Pranihana. So you meditate on source, which you are. Which you are. And that brings me to a poem that I would like to share with all of you. Okay, this poem I'm going to share with you is written, or was said, by Maria Sabina, who is the Mazatec woman who lived in a time of awakening for mushroom medicine. She actually shared it with the West, and she was from Oaxaca, Mexico. And these were her words. Cure yourself with the light of the sun and the rays of the moon, with the sound of the river and the waterfall, with the swaying of the sea and the fluttering of birds. Heal yourself with mint, with neem and eucalyptus. Sweeten yourself with lavender, rosemary, and chamomile. Hug yourself with the cocoa bean and touch of cinnamon. Put love in tea instead of sugar and take it looking at the stars. Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain. Get strong with bare feet on the ground and with everything that is born from it. Get smart every day by listening to your intuition, looking at the world with the eye of your forehead. Jump, dance, sing, so that you live happier. Heal yourself with beautiful love, and always remember, you are the medicine. You are the medicine. So I leave you with those words. Basically, that Indigenous woman is talking about the same thing. How do we heal ourselves? How do we develop and cultivate these practices? We take care of our mind, we take care of our physical body, and of course, our spirit can soar. Thank you so much for listening. After this one, we're going to go into the other limbs of the tree, and we're going to be heading towards wrapping up these lessons. I hope you've been enjoying them and they are helpful to your journey and to your practice. Thank you. Namaste. Have a wonderful rest of your day.